Saturday's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News, the programme and podcast which looks at news stories of the day through the papers and press of yesterday. We're returning to Commissioners. We looked at Port St Mary Commissioners the other week, and I noticed in the news this last few days Port Erin Commissioners have re-elected their chairman for the 6th time. Very good they are. So I thought we'd have a look at how Port Erin Commissioners have featured over the years. And we can go right back to 1897 to start. The Isle of Man Times, August the 17th. The election of 2 commissioners for Port Erin to fill the vacancies caused by the retirement of Messrs Costain and Madrill took place on Tuesday. Mr John Clegg, chairman of the Port Erin Commissioners, was the returning officer, and he was assisted by Mr Moore, clerk to the commissioners. 5 nominations for the 2 seats, viz. Edward Costain, contractor, proposed by Mr Edward Allen, seconded by Mr James Milray. Edward Madrill, shoemaker, proposed by James Costain, seconded by Thomas Clegg. George Lucas Trustram, hotel proprietor, proposed by Thomas Clegg, seconded by William E. Taylor. Joseph McCard, builder, McCard's still going, I believe, proposed by William H. Moore, seconded by High Crageen. And James M. Gill, boat owner, proposed by James Milray, seconded by Edward Grebin. A public meeting was held on Monday to hear the views of candidates, all of whom turned up with the exception of Mr Edward Madrill, one of the old members who has since retired. The candidates gave their views, referring principally to the water and sanitary questions. Messrs Gill and Trustram also referred to the desirability of having a bridge across from Falcon's Nest to the Ballafurt Road, so as to continue the promenade. All were in favour of continuing the sewer out past the breakwater. The chairman, Mr John Clegg, in responding to a vote of thanks, impressed upon those present the necessity of returning the very best men they could, and men who could devote time to the ratepayers' interests. Just men, you note. The 4 candidates ran separately, but it was really a fight between 2 old commissioners, Messrs Costain and Trustram, against 2 new men, Messrs Gell and McCard. There was not much voting in the morning, but in the afternoon the ratepayers turned up better, especially in the last hour, when nearly all the polling was done. I think it's the same these days, isn't it? Several cars were employed in the afternoon, 1897 and cars, but very little interest was taken in the election up to 2 o'clock. Much to the surprise of those interested, when the poll stood as follows: Costain 11, Madrill withdrawn 2, Trustram 9, McCard 10, Gill 3. At 3 o'clock, there had been very few more votes taken when the poll stood as follows: Costain 15, Trustram 14, McCard 15, Gill 5. Shortly after 3 o'clock, Gill withdrew in favour of McCard, and the result was declared at 4 o'clock as follows: Mr Costain 45, Mr McCard 38, Mr Trustram 37, and then Mr Gill 10 and Mr Madrill 3. The returning officer, after announcing the result, said, "I therefore declare Edward Costain and Joseph McCard duly elected commissioners for Port Erin to serve for 3 years." If we skip to 1906, Port Erin Commissioners and the legal fraternity from the Peel City Guardian, Saturday, October the 13th of that year. The Port Erin Commissioners have been threatened by Messrs Callow and Hughes Games with a lawsuit on behalf of Mr A.N. Lawton, High Bailiff of Peel, who seeks to have them compelled to carry out the purchase of Port Erin brews. The Commissioners deny responsibility for the agreement to purchase and have passed a resolution asking the Home Secretary to sanction an English barrister appearing in the Manx courts to defend the suit on the ground that Manx lawyers are prejudiced against the Commissioners in the matter. Mr Ambrose Qualtrough questioned the disinterestedness of the Manx bench on the subject and suggested an effort should be made to secure an English judge for the purpose of the case. We understand that Messrs Dickinson, Cruikshank and Co., who are acting for the Commissioners, have ceased to act for them. I wonder what happened in the outcome of that. We're skipping right the way forward now to 1940 and the Times, the Isle of Man Times of Saturday, January the 27th of that year. Outstanding road charges at Port Erin. The Finance Committee of the Port Erin Commissioners on Tuesday reported the clerk had submitted to them a statement of outstanding amounts from frontages in connection with the making up of unadopted roads. The committee recommended the frontages in question should be approached with a view to reducing the outstanding amounts. And a suggested new road. The Roads Committee, to whom the question of constructing a footpath or roadway from the Russian Garage to Bayview Road, which would make a direct route from Station Road and the centre of Port Erin to the north, and recommended that a deputation be appointed to wait on Mr. H.G. Madrill, the owner of the land required, with a view to seeing upon what terms land for a footpath or roadway could be obtained. Mr. Keggin said this perhaps would not be an opportune time to embark on any expensive scheme. There never is a good time, is there? But if it could be done without involving any great expenditure, he thought, they should do their best to carry it out. Nothing's changed there then. The board agreed to this recommendation and appointed Mr. J.J. McCard, JP MHK, and Mr. Corrin a deputation to see Mr. Madrill. A communication was received from Government Office asking the Commissioners to submit schemes of work for next winter for which they intended to apply for a government grant. The matter was referred to the Roads Committee. In 1944, we read in the Times of September the 2nd, Port Erin Commissioners and the Manx Government, truth about alleged high-handed action. The publication of the correspondence between Government Office and the Port Erin Commissioners as to a questionnaire issued on the people of Port Erin, asking whether they were willing to take evacuees from London and southern England, puts an entirely different complexion on the matter that given by the debate at the Port Erin Commissioners meeting published last week in our columns. That's in the Isle of Man Times, of course. The Commissioners passed a resolution protesting most strongly against the attitude of the Government Secretary in having handbills printed and distributed in Port Erin under the heading Commissioners Office and signed A.G. Clegg Clark without first getting the Commissioners' consent to do so. Oh dear. The resolution proceeds, my Commissioners consider the attitude adopted by you most undemocratic and high-handed and a slight on them, and feel common courtesy alone would have suggested it to you to get their consent before you had the handbills printed. It would appear from the correspondence issued to the press that the Government Office acted perfectly correctly in the matter. It was necessary, if Port Erin is to take evacuees, that the number they could take be ascertained at once, and on July the 28th, the Government Office sent the Commissioners, in order to save time, printed forms, which the Government Secretary says in his letter he would be grateful if you would have distributed. Oh dear. Touched a raw nerve there, I feel. 1949, the Isle of Man Times, April the 9th, which was a Saturday. Hackney carriage motor licences. The Port Erin Commissioners are prepared to receive applications for Hackney carriage and motor charabanc licences. Never hear of charabancs these days, do you? For the year commencing the 12th of May 1949. Applications to be made in writing not later than the 9th day of April of this year. 1952 in the Times, Saturday, March the 8th. The open-air swimming pool. Still there, of course, but sadly no longer in use. The Port Erin Commissioners invite applications for the following seasonal staff for the above premises. The open-air swimming pool, of course, in the town. A swimming instructor and baths attendant and a manageress for the cafe. Further particulars as to duties, wages and period of employment may be handed on application to A.G. Clegg, Clerk to the Commissioners. And then I also noticed the Manx Museum trustees, and this makes you think how wages have changed somewhat. A vacancy exists for the post of Museum Technical Assistant. Salary according to age and experience on a scale of £275 to £325 per annum. Per annum, that is. Handicrafts experience essential. Probably not too bad money then, but my goodness, doesn't sound a lot now, does it? The Isle of Man Times, Saturday, January the 31st, 1953. Port Erin Commissioners, Milner's Tower may be floodlit for the coronation. Port Erin Commissioners on Tuesday agreed to inquire into the possibility of getting government assistance for the purposes of floodlighting Milner's Tower for the coronation. The board agreed to advertise Bradder Glen and activities on the screen for a 26 weeks period, commencing on April the 28th at a cost of £26, the same as last year. A letter from the postmaster said that extensions to the earlier deliveries would start on February the 16th and would take in Bradder West Road and Meadowfield to the north, Shaw Road to the biological station to the south, the four roads to the east and St George's Crescent. By 1959, in the Times of February the 13th, which was a Friday, unlucky for some, Drive for Industries, we read. 3 Southern Boards of Commissioners, Port Erin, Port St Mary and Rushen, will be meeting soon to discuss ideas on attracting light industry to the south of the island. The date for the meeting will not be decided until the next meeting of the Port Erin Commissioners. Recently, Port Erin Commissioners invited the other 2 boards to join them in conference on the subject, and at the monthly meeting of the Commissioners on Tuesday, it was reported both boards had replied favourably. Mr J.P. Woolnough said that before the Commissioners met the other boards, they should have some concrete proposals to make. Mr J.A. Moore said, "We have got to pool our ideas." There was a tender point reported in the Times of May the 31st, which was a Friday as well, 1957. Port Erin Commissioners decided some time ago that their Office-cum-Information Bureau should be decorated in contemporary style, and this decision, Mr J.A. Moore, chairman, told the monthly meeting of the board on Tuesday, had been severely ridiculed by many local people. There had been criticism, said Mr Moore, because the work had not been done by a Port Erin firm, but he added 2 local decorators had been asked to tender, and only one, H.S. Duke, had done so. The tender of the Port Erin man, £76, was £17 more than the tender of £59, and 1 shilling accepted from Messrs Nicholson Brothers of Douglas. "We couldn't possibly accept the local tender," commented Mr Moore. It's all down to money, Wally, as they say. And finally, I will just go back to 1906. In the Times, Saturday, December the 1st, under a wonderful column entitled "Manure, Manure, Manure," a short advert for the Commissioners. Port Erin Commissioners Depot. Mr Callow has been favoured with instructions from the Port Erin Commissioners to sell by auction on Tuesday next, the 4th of December 1906, at their depot in Port Erin, about 350 loads of excellent manure. The auctioneer would draw the attention of the public to the fact that the manure has been turned and is now free from all broken bottles, jars, etc., and will be sold in lots to suit purchasers. The auction's at 3:15 p.m. Must have been popular, I imagine. How they got it back again, carts, I assume. Or did people just turn up with bags? Or wheelbarrows? One wonders. I assume we don't get the same sort of things now, but bottles and broken glass, and goodness me. Perhaps we are improving in some ways. Whichever way you look at it, I'm glad to see that the Port Erin Commissioners are still going strong. Lots of old news, as always. In the meantime, I'll see you same time next week. Cheerio. You're gonna be yesterday's news.